Welcome to tonight's Developer Chat this Monday, July 20th, 2009. I am Vash Community, the Community Manager for there, and we are joined by the Chaz to answer your questions. Earlier in the month, I actually posted a forum thread in which I asked for people to post some questions, so I might actually just start from there. Unless, Chaz, do you have anything specifically you want to open up with?
I just want to mention I did go through the forum list of items and suggestions. I think one thing that would be helpful maybe today to talk about a little bit is what kind of priorities you see on there. It's always hard to tell if things are wanted by a lot of people or if it's just an individual that wants a certain thing. So maybe we can all just kind of look through that forum thread and kind of get an idea of how we want to prioritize.
That sounds like a good plan.
Would you like us to vote on that here in the meeting or in the forum thread?
I don't know if we have to spend today doing it. I'm willing to take the forum suggestions and add all of them to the list. But as we all know, there's a limited time to work on things. So the more people want something,
Right. That makes sense. Well, I'll just start with at the top of the. I'll start at the top of the forums, and I'll start moving down. I know that there were some conversations in here that aren't really questions. I don't really know how to address those because it looks like they're not really suggestions, but more like at this point in time, they seem like they could be more of a debate about those particular items. So, but I'll just start at the top. The first question, of course, being when will the submission fees for the props go down? And that is assuming that submission fees for the props will go down. I don't think that... Chaz, have we ever said that we were going to lower the price of the submission fees for the props? And if we haven't said that, is there a possibility of us doing that, or do you think they're accordingly priced? Hello? Am I still here?
Yeah, I hear you, Chaz. Vash. I don't hear Chaz.
He's playing the strong silent type.
He may be unavailable for a second. Yeah, he just lost his connection. Just give us another second. In the meantime, let me state that we actually made a post today, for those of you guys who haven't seen it, about the end of our Scion contract and when the last day we will be taking submissions for Scion cars, which will be the 31st of July. There is a post of their fun times, Help Central, and in the forums, and I will gladly take any questions, though I think that the announcement pretty much says it all. You will still be able to relist the items that you've submitted, you'll be able to resell the items that you have purchased, but you will no longer be able to submit new stuff. After the 31st. Yes, they will. C5. The clothes will also go off market, so pretty much everything that we were selling will be taken out of the shop.
Sorry about that. I lost my wireless.
It is the end of our contract with Scion. Yes. Sheets, the customizable cars, will also be removed from shop. So pretty much all developer items will still be able to be relisted, and everything that's already in world can be resold, but everything that's in the shop, as in the Scion shop, will be pulled and no longer sold after the 31st. Now back to our regularly scheduled program.
So a couple of the couple items that are kind of going on in the background. I always like to explain things that are going behind the scenes because it might seem like we're not doing anything for a while. Both kind of directly or maybe indirectly, affect the developer program in general. One's been the drop count, the release of the 100 drop zones, and really a lot of that was kind of the infrastructure to allow us to increase the drop count. It wasn't just a matter of going in and changing the number 50 to 100 in a few places. There were things that needed to be done for that were also needed to allow us to have more interactive objects, denser areas, to be able to consolidate areas onto servers, put more dense areas on servers so we don't have a lot of servers running areas that a lot of times are empty, because that kind of gets expensive. And the other big project that's been going on that I've been supporting is the card table project. And as you know, the card tables are built on the new interactivity framework. So that the original card tables, as you know, had a bunch of limitations and were kind of based around, spades. And as you started venturing away from spades, it got a little hard to keep on creating games. So the new interactivity framework has allowed us to create things like Motu Motu, or basically just opened up the types of games that we can create, and also allow us to have things like one-drop card tables and being able to auction them and return them and all those things. Not that any guys would return our card tables, but so those are the two big things going on right now. So I'll open it up if there's anything specifically you want talked about.
Well, yes, I was actually going down the list of questions from the forum thread, the ones that weren't really conversations, but more just like general questions. I was starting at the top and moving my way down. I actually just finished asking the first question, which is, when will the submission fees for the props go down? That's assuming that we will be lowering the cost of submission fees for props.
So I saw that. So all the pricing, a few years back, there was a project to come out with something called resource-based pricing. So all of the pricing was based on textures, on vert count, the size, number of collisions, whether it's a vehicle, the type of interactions you can do with that. And the submission fees were also resource-based at the time, and due to a lot of feedback, we changed the submission fees so that way they were pretty much fixed. I believe the only difference is animated versus non-animated pricing for individual models. So all of those prices, all the new prices, including the props and any of the new clothing items, those numbers aren't really, just made up. Everything gets plugged into that spreadsheet, and behold, the numbers come out of it. So without really going back and reviewing that whole pricing, which I don't know if is really something that's going to happen right now, those are the prices based on that.
Sure. What was the post about?
I was going to suggest that we have a knick-knack type prop that we're allowed to submit with a 5K submission and very low specs, almost identical to a knick-knack, but possibly the only change would be a polygon budget of a NIC 2. Raise the polygons to 250 and have everything else be the same as a knick-knack. I think you'd see a huge increase in one node props being submitted and bought.
So what do you mean when you're saying, because I did read that and I was a little confused what you meant by, equating it to a knick-knack. I'm not sure how that would change the submission fee. I could see if you had different specs for
Well,
poly.
make it identical to a knick-knack that's submittable for 5K and low wholesale, but just give it a few more polygons and have a. Would there be anything wrong with a knick-knack type version of a props? In other words, it's got the prop costs. Sorry, the knick-knack costs. I need more coffee. A one-node prop with the costs of a knick-knack.
I think when because I know we had tried a few versions of the prop pricing, when we were doing that project, and I know we had made things smaller. We took out a bunch of polys, and it didn't seem to change much. The big difference between the prop and the and a knick-knack is, a knick-knack is something you drop in your zone, so it actually belongs to the zone, whereas a prop is actually ends up being a separate object. It gets attached to the avatar, but as far as a resource perspective, a prop does present load to the servers.
A lot more load than a regular knick-knack drop. I mean, we have an ice cream cone. Francis makes an ice cream cone. I made an ice cream sundae prop that was taken directly from my knick-knack folder. I just attached my knick-knack sundae to the avatar's hand and submitted it as a prop. And the cost was just, huge compared to that knick-knack that I had previously made out of the same model.
Yeah, the actual costs of, the actual load that the prop has on the server doesn't have as much to do with, the polys or the number of pixels or anything. It's actually how it's posed to the skeleton and, the fact that it is a separate object that's attached to the avatar. The only thing that the polygons and the pixels do is make it more load on your individual client. So on your computer, if it's a bigger, more complicated model, your client will see the load. But as far as what happens on the servers, the size of the model or how complicated actually doesn't matter too much. It's more that it's being posed the way it is.
So would there be any chance of oh wait a minute, we're already at 250 polygons. That's right. It is, yeah. Is there any chance
it
of
ended up
making
pretty
yeah.
small, right?
Is there any chance for people who just want to make an ice cream cone in the hand is there any chance of a cheaper config for these tiny little one-node props than what we've got now?
I would have to look. I'll have to look at the spreadsheet to see where the pricing actually comes from. if there's any wiggle. I know that when we did that one node prop, we actually did create something that was a lot smaller and had a pretty small texture and everything, and that's what it ended up as. So I don't know if we could even go smaller or whatever. I could see if I could break that down to where it's actually coming from.
I think you'd see a bigger business in one node props if that were possible. And a lot more sales of them too. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks for the feedback, Kate.
All right, next question down the line is from Sassy Be Me. Why is it that with vehicle builders the vert count is so much lower than the poly count allowed, and can that be revised? I've been working here for 6 years. I still have no idea what that means, but I'm sure that you do, Jeff.
So the vehicle builder has a bunch of different ones. I can take a look at that post, but do we know specifically which model you're talking about?
Not according to the post, no.
No, I've seen the same with the bikes and the hoverboards. The vert count was really low comparison to polys to any other models we have.
It probably came from the painter models. They probably took the painter models, looked at the vert and poly counts, and just converted those into some builder items, maybe throwing a few more verts and polys. Without knowing exactly what people are going to be building with them. It's mostly kind of a guess with that. If you want, you can put some actual suggestions that you would like to see as far as vert and poly counts. We've kind of done that in the past with some of the items, and when the time ends up coming, I've often just plugged in whatever numbers that people kind of ask for.
Okay, well I can look at that because even with mapping, sometimes the vert count gets outrageous. When you have such a low vert count compared just to the poly, that limits so much of what you can do with it, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah. Just basically take the specs as you would see on the developer site and create a config that kind of works for you. I could give you what the pricing would be, and we could figure out if that's what everybody wants.
And the next question from Sassy, this is actually pretty funny, but I understand why. This is, when are we going to be able to have male skirts in style makers? I'm assuming for things like kilts and whatnot. That's a good question.
Yeah, there actually was a long jacket, but there were so many issues with it. And actually, I think it might have been a female long jacket. I didn't dare even release it. I think in both those cases, robes or skirts or anything like that, I think it's just a matter of some project coming up where we could account for an artist's time to spend and create those. If there is spare time, we do have an artist on contract who's doing a lot of work for like CC Metro. He's done a lot of animations for the new card games. When he has some downtime, it's possible that we could see if we can do some of these things. I just don't know when that would be.
Yep. Pretty much that's what it comes down to, is the amount of time that it would take and the resources that we have to reserve for that. I personally have been wanting a long jacket since my very first day of logging in. And I think that it'd be really cool to have skirts too, because then I could be a cake song. You know, short skirt and a long jacket. Anybody get that joke? Probably not. Um,
That artist that I was talking about that's contracted, he actually did the work on modifying the fitted tops and bottoms to what came back from the feedback when we were testing those out. He hasn't had a chance because of all the animations and everything that are needed for the new card games to go back and fix the female one, but you know we already have a female style maker version, so that was less of an issue. I think the other fitted ones were more interesting.
Well, how do we let you know that this is more of a priority scoot-wise than anything else? For example, I mean, what other scoot requests have you got at the top of the list right now?
The skirt.
Yeah, have you got anything? Oh yeah, the Cuban heels to match up with the men's fitted bottoms. That's pretty important so we can get a contiguous male lower body. Yeah.
So this is interesting. I know our forum software supports it, but I don't know if we have it turned on. Do we actually allow polls in the forums?
we can. We can actually create our own polls with the forums. We have it. We don't have it activated, so members can create polls yet. Um, and but we could. I was actually considering starting our first poll this week for the their games logo contest. But I guess this would be another really good poll to have.
Yeah, I mean that would be helpful because I know there has been some, you know, the fitted ones. Obviously, there was some need for those, and coming out with you know shoes that match because the issue with the heel having some skin showing. So if you want to start a thread on you know different scoots that you want and then kind of rank them, you know I'll just keep them available. I don't know when we would get to them, but I'll just keep them available for when the artist has time to work on them. And that would include that fitted female top because we wanted to map that to the same way as the male one.
Now I have that cake song stuck in my head. I noticed that there's actually a couple of people who have questions. If you have questions that are related to what we're talking about, which this is related to this, go ahead and ask. Otherwise, if you can wait until we're done with the forum questions, and then I'll start calling on you. Actually, I'll probably have you IM me so that you can let me know that your hand is raised. But don't IM me yet because we got to get through these forum questions first. But go ahead, Crunk.
If nobody's rereading it, it won't be in the recording.
So the question is, what is the difference between the fitted top for women and how it's always been? What can I do with that top that I couldn't do before?
Well, what we wanted to do is change the fitted top, the female fitted top, to match the male fitted top, and we weren't able to do that in time, so we released the other ones without it. The male fitted top offers more symmetrical painting, so all of the different areas are paintable independently. I believe the female fitted top, the sleeves are mirrored. The custom style maker fitted top, the sleeves are mirrored.
Yeah, but on the new top that's being mapped right now, you've got separate arms that you can do different things on, right?
Right. Yeah, that's the difference.
And I actually had an IM just went on. Did you answer the question?
Yeah, and actually, when I'm thinking about it, I kind of would consider, as you're ranking them, I know there's been talk about other poses for the props. We've talked about that in the past. So it'd be the same artist that would do any of the new poses, any of the new scoots, remapping the fitting top, things like that. So if you want to kind of rank all that, for example, would you rather see a new pose for the prop, or would you rather have the mapping for the fitted female top finished, or do you want the shoes, or kind of rank those on how you'd like to see them, so that way, like I said, if he gets some downtime and isn't able to do something, I can work on what people kind of consider the priority.
The next question down the line, I answered at the beginning of the meeting, but I'll ask it again. What is the official last day for submitting the Scions? And the date for that is July 31st. I think that the next question I'm going to skip only because there seemed to be a conversation as to people not agreeing. Hang on. I'm coming. I am incoming. Next question. You know what? I'll go ahead and let some people ask some questions while I'm scrolling through these forums. So the next question will be from C5 Studio, and then after C5, Gia. Go ahead, C5. Ask your question in here. His question being, my latest submission did not have an approval. Is this a new feature? Well, he means a approval email notice. Is this a new feature? Actually, I did talk to Helper Yoko about this. I believe it's this issue earlier today, and the issue was an internal miscommunication. Something went wrong. And they've actually ironed it out, and that shouldn't be an issue going forward. So I think that issue has already been resolved. No, it's not really old issue. It's like we haven't really had an answer posted anywhere, but it was something that we talked about earlier today, and so the answer is it was internal miscommunication. There was some human error. And I think that's been resolved and will not be an issue going forward. So you should be receiving emails about your submissions. I will double check right now just to make sure that I understood that correctly. And in the meantime, Gia has a question.
So the question is, why are we considering new scoots when there are existing scoots that are broken? I guess that's a question for you guys. Well, as I said, it's a matter of prioritizing things. So same thing. If you're talking about fixing existing items, if that ends up being the priority, it's still artist time. So it's not like we can be fixing them at the same time we're creating 20 new scoots. Somebody's spending the time to create either scoots or fixing scoots. Well, Jay, you just heard a whole bunch of people asking for skirts and shoes and fitted tops. Um, I don't know what to say. The developers are asking for new things. That's what ends up being people want. So I think as a group you kind of have to prioritize. I know there are broken scoots and they need to be fixed. I see them too. Um, but there's not a staff of 200 artists working on them. We got one contracted artist and that's it. And he's working on a lot of projects right now for other things. So I'd recommend, like I said, prioritizing what you'd like to see, whether it's new scoots, you want animations, you want existing scoots fixed. Of course, with the existing scoots, we have to be careful that we're fixing issues like stretching or things like that you feel are fixable versus um, you know, changing mapping. Changing mapping is kind of a new scoot. You can't really change that without breaking a whole bunch of already existing items. So in that kind of list that everybody's putting together, I think okay. Well, I don't know what to say to you. Actually, I'm the one that broke it, but again, it doesn't matter because I got my priorities that I have to do on a daily basis, and I don't get to make what I want to work on. So we were asked to release the boots. We released the boots, and in doing so, we needed to fix the StyleMaker tops. And another artist worked on that. Unfortunately, way back when they checked in the StyleMaker bottoms, they didn't check in the final version. So we never had the source to the final version. We made changes to the StyleMaker bottoms to fix to fit the boots because they completely didn't work at all, and there were other issues. But again, you have to prioritize it against everything. Just because we want it doesn't mean that it's just going to get done. Either there were a whole lot of people asking for the fitted tops and the fitted bottoms, and that was what was talking about in what we've been talking about in these last meetings, and that was put as the priority. I don't know what to say.
Testing, testing.
Test.
Test,
Hello.
test. Can you hear it? Can you hear me, Francis? All right. Got a question from Mike Sissar from the forums. It says, any possibility to add some build categories? Personally, I would like to have one for hover bikes, config 2 with 3,000 polygon limit. I really need more vertex. I'm assuming that the answer to this will probably just be we need to figure out how much people would want this type of thing. Am I correct, Chad?
Yeah, we've talked about um, the whole thing with categories. I think one of the things that was talked about, when we were talking about 2D shopping was, adding some sort of tagging feature. So that way you could tag items in auctions to make it a little easier to find things. We're probably never going to have enough of the base categories to make it really useful. That right now we have structures, so I don't know what else that we'd create that would actually be useful in general. But that was one of the things that came out was, the whole tagging idea.
Our next question will be from Davy Rocket. Go for it, Davy.
Yeah, I just want to just want to get an update on when we'll be able to design land vehicles.
You mean like builder buggies and things like that?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, that's known as something we want to do. We don't really have any timing for when we would do that, but it's known that we'd like to do that at some point.
Sorry about that. Let's see. Next question from the forums. I think that this is from Sassy. Any possibility of a scroll or book template yet for builders? I think that the answer for that is, we'd have to put that on the suggestion board and have that move up in priority. As of right now, as far as I know, we don't have any plans to do anything like that. So it would have to actually get on the list of things to do. But as of right now, there's no plans for it. But I will definitely add it to the suggestion board.
The big issue with that one is, of course, you can drop these objects anywhere. So I know there was a lot of work done originally with their docs to kind of make them blend in. The original their docs, if you remember, had I think the book was on like the tree stump, and there was some of the ribbons were sitting there on a flag, and a lot of people found that these created a lot of clutter, because unlike the PAS items, you can basically drop them anywhere, including right outside of somebody's zone. So there was some care in trying to make these objects not get in the way too much. So that would be one consideration with doing developer versions of those, is since you can drop them anywhere, you could potentially have items that aren't necessarily their docs that end up being other things that people are able to use these items to kind of put in front of other people's zones and things like that. So there's probably a greater thought that would need to go into that.
Next question from the forums. This is from Nightlight. What is the status of 12, 16, and 20 seaters, and options that combine sit and stand nodes?
Yeah, not much has happened with that one. I know there was a pretty good list of specs that came out. The the scripts with those, the reason why those weren't done at the same time as the other seating ones is, the scripts for those really need to be looked at to see if, they'll work with what you're trying to design, the cameras and things like that. I'm not sure that all of them are going to be in a desirable way.
Next question is from Sheets.
Hey Chaz, my question is regarding possible release of the Super Bunny templates for painting. I know many developers do want builder super shoes, but at least releasing the template, I think, even if the cost were 25 or 20K to submit just like the regular supers, I think that people would still buy them.
Yeah, I don't know. In general, I think there's some desire to have, these special items that maybe partners can sell. Like originally it was done with the Nike product line. Sometimes these are like partner features to make them more desirable. To say, hey, if you partner with us, you can get
Chat that's not around 2 a.m. for the European developers. Unfortunately, um, us, the two of us who are here right now, we're on California time, and this is the end of our workday, or towards the end of our workday. It's supposed to be the end of our workday. Not sure if we'll be able to adjust the time to meet up with our internal needs, because we can't log in at midnight our time because we're not working. This is when we're actually scheduled to be here in the office. But hopefully in the future, as we get more and more developers, perhaps we can start spreading out the time to more evenly cover European times. I'm not sure if people would be able to log in as frequently if we had a developer chat at 9 a.m. I'm sure there are some of you out there who have jobs that you need to be. We tried a Euro developer. No, it wasn't the Euro developer, but it was a Euro something. Was that a Euro developer chat?
Well, we've done like betas at different times. I know that. I mean, the thing about I guess the developer chat is, we also do use the forums to kind of get, it's kind of helpful getting the questions in advance from the forums. I think that worked out really well this time, and also recording them. I think it would be great if we were able to hit all the different time zones, but I think there's probably other ways we can at least get the information back and forth.
Resetting the zone box.
Almost reminds you of Everywood Square.
Go ahead and ask your question, Davey. Davey, that is a question better left for a different meeting. And I'll tell you what, when we have our next MAB meeting, which will be this Thursday, I'll try. I think that I think I saw Meadow Angel in here. Hey, Meadow. Would you mind terribly adding that to the agenda, and I'll get Mike to answer that question. Carcass.
Been a few debates on being able to hold two props. Has there been any internal discussions?
No, well, I mean, that would actually require changing the way, what's called the animob. The animob's basically the object that can become a vehicle or become a prop or a handheld item like a drink. So it would require changing the way that that code works, because right now you can sit on one vehicle or one sittable item, and you can carry one item. So that'd be kind of a big change to change that. It really hasn't come up as something that we're going to work on immediately. Although I understand why people would want it.
Let's see, there was a question in here that was brought to the MAB, and Meadow posted it for this meeting. Let's see. Blackout would like some changes / additions made to StyleMaker / designer items. He would like long t-shirts for women, added hoodies with the hood added, and would like some changes made to the flip-flops. He said that from a distance the flip-flops no longer look like flip-flops, they look like slippers. I think that this is also part of what the Chaz was talking about earlier. This is stuff that we would like to hear from the members, what has a higher priority to do.
Yeah, definitely any of those fixes. The jeans that I'm wearing right now in Lot 2 turn the color of the shirt. That's another one that's broken. If you zoom far enough away from me, I'll turn orange.
You're not just naturally orange?
Not naturally, I have to work at it.
Oompa loompa. Nice question from Mahandi. I'd like to see the opportunity to use 10 materials on seating similar to advanced shop builder models.
Say that one again?
Says, I'd like to see the opportunity to use 10 materials on seating similar to advanced shop builder models. More textures for seating.
I thought we did bump that. I thought some of those were bumped up to the ones that had a higher amount of polygons had more textures. And I suppose I could look.
Wow, Mahandi posted a lot of questions. Hang on, I'm scrolling through them because I think that I can answer some of these.
So I know there's a 5-seat group seating config. That one has 8 textures. 5-seat group seating config 3 has 8 textures. And the 8-seater has 8 textures as well.
Well, he wants 10 men. 10! There's
The
another...
chairs and couches, I guess, well, that's an animated config. I mean, I suppose, I mean, the regular couches really don't have enough pixels to, unless I guess you make them really small textures.
Well, the next question's actually a little complicated. I'm not really sure if you can answer that here. I'll read it out loud, but maybe you would rather take it to the forum post itself, since I don't think that Mahani's actually here, and maybe have the continued discussion in that forum post. He says, I'd like to see multi-drop count models. Means if I build a model heavier than, for example, the shop 6 limit allows me to, the structure simply counts 2 drops in world, rather than having me submit 2 independent models. This could save a lot of texture files on the servers when building theme objects like castles, garden hedges, larger shops, etc., especially when all the separate items are only meant to be set together in one way to build a single structure anyway. So basically the idea to provide new builder classes like shop builder 6 by 2 inches, 2 feet? I don't remember. Is it inches? 1 feet 2?
I think he was saying like 2 drops or 16 drops, and basically have the complexity, but submitting it as a single item.
That sounds like a very familiar idea.
Yeah, part of it is, of course, making these objects as you're making them more complicated. You want the lotting to happen kind of still independently, and there's ways that we you kind of do it with some of their models. If you've ever, not that you'd ever do this, but if you've ever searched through the resources folder, kind of looking for the Tier Tower or the Zephyr scene or anything like that, you'll find that you can't actually find those models. Those are actually built together with something called blocks, and what blocks do, and I know that's probably ringing a bell with people, but what they basically do is allow you to create this one file that has several different objects in it, and then you can actually drop those objects multiple times within for example, you could have a wall block and you could have a door block, and then you kind of fit them all together, so you're using two walls and 2 doors, or a door and a window, or something like that. So we've kind of just added that capability to zone objects for the card project, because what we wanted to be able to do is put down, say, different card fans or cards or poker chips or anything like that, have those objects appear on the table, but not have to model them in. The current version of Motu Motu, we actually modeled them in, so the model for the table contains a whole bunch of card fans and everything that we pose as we go along, and that's kind of become kind of crazy when we go to games that have a lot more cards and have a lot more chips. So now we're looking at using that block technology for the card games, and I'm kind of wondering if that could also help with the stuff you're building to be able to build more complicated objects, but at the same time making them so they're kind of responsive. If we do reduce some of the, I don't know if we automatically just want to up the drop count, or if we want to have better ways of creating these so they're more efficient. And I'm kind of telling you with this is kind of some of the thoughts with how we of course just went through the project of increasing the number of drops, and there's been some some discussion on other ways of increasing the amount of stuff that you can have in a zone, um, without at the same time making it so, you can't walk through it because, there's too much lag or it's killing the servers. Um, so there's a few things being discussed. Um, and no, I don't have an ETA.
Next question. Are we going to see developer portal home slash painter slash builder home portal homes?
Yeah, I mean that's a nice thing for rather than submitting a whole bunch of different versions of a house and then having just basically because of the costs having a whole bunch of houses sitting on a block that look exactly the same way. We do have the technology to be able to swap out doors and wallpaper and things like that. Um, and I think that would allow the people to create more creative objects. The holdup with that in the past has been the number of drops that a porta home consumes. I think now that we have the bigger drop lots, that's less of an issue. Um, and I still think that that would be pretty useful to be able to change out the home and kind of make really unique ones using a lot of the wallpapers that are already there.
Next question is asking about developer dispenser items. I'd like to be able to build my own advertising items with a direct link action node to the according auction listing.
Sheets had a really good name for that. Was it inner frame technology? I think that's what it was. Uh, yeah, I think that would make a good template for people to be able to change those out because we really only have one style form right now.
Yeah, builders would love to customize those.
Yeah, I mean, there's been talk, could we come out with a few simple ones like, a frame version or a version that, just sits on a kind of like a poster. Francis actually came up with some pretty good suggestions on what to do with those. Um, so either way, a template or just, at least a few more varieties of them. In general, have those been useful? The mannequins and the dispensers. I think they were really we kind of got an opportunity with those because we want to, of course, be able to offer to give partner items out. So that kind of drove us to creating those, to creating the dispenser, and of course taking it to the level where developers can now create 3D shops with them. I think is a really good thing.
Okay, so we should probably wrap this up soon. There's still a lot of questions left, but I think that because they're posted in the forums, yeah, we've been here for over an hour now. There's a lot of questions still left in the forums. I'm sure that we can get to those separately. Does anybody else here have any questions? Go for it, Davey. Light bulbs, when can we have use for them? You mean the particle effect stuff?
Yeah, I think that would be great to put those into the developer items. One of the things that we were trying to work on first was oddly enough the drop count increase. Not so much for the drop count increase, but the way it handles memory. As you know, we went through this long period of fighting where with things like that where zones would kind of blink when they got too full. We fought with that a bit. We even had problems with the card tables just causing the zone to just blink because it ran out of memory. So part of getting the higher drop counts was also addressing that issue, so that way we can kind of put more stuff in a zone. So I think that kind of helps going back and looking at some of these particle effects and lights and things like that and bringing those to the templates.
Alright, well, on that note, I'm going to wrap us up. Thank you, Chaz, for coming and joining us. And thank you to all the developers who came to ask questions and talk. Thank you, Francis, very much for stepping in and doing the recording. And we'll see you guys in the forums.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Oh yeah, and it looks like Banshee Kate already started that thread, so be sure to post your priorities into that forum thread.
Are you ready to go load the mayhem?